But Justin Hurwitz, congratulations on your 3 Oscar nominations for La La Land. How did it feel when you got the news that you'd been nominated, and that for 3 nonetheless out of 14 total nominations for the movie?
I felt great. I set my alarm for 5:15 a.m. and I woke up and I had 3 minutes to get the streaming going before they started, I think at 5:18. And yeah, it was great. It was really exciting for me, and also just to see so many departments from the movie being nominated, and yeah, just lots of people's work being recognized, which is cool.
Well, I mean, it must mean a lot to you personally because you've been with this project for many years. I mean, tell us a little bit about the origins of this film.
Well, Damien and I went to college together. We started bonding over musicals when we were in school. The first feature we made together was a musical, little black and white 16 millimeter film musical called Guy and Madeline on a Park Bench. That was basically what we spent the second half of college doing, making that together. And then we moved out to LA in 2008 and started getting Guy and Madeline into some festivals. Finally, some festivals took it, and some people who saw it said, "I think you guys should make another musical, something bigger and better." It was a student film essentially, so as you know, we were very we were very much learning as we made it. We're still learning, but it was a steep learning curve on that movie for sure. So yeah, we just wanted to make something more polished and something bigger, and so we started talking about making another musical together, and that is La La Land. And those conversations were around 2010 that we started talking about making another musical, and then we worked on it through basically until this past summer. We stopped for a couple of years. We couldn't get it made. We put it down around 2012 because we couldn't get it made. So we did Whiplash in the meantime, and then picked it back up full time in 2014.
I was going to say, I mean, it certainly must have helped that Whiplash came out and had such great success and won all those Oscars.
That allowed us to make La La Land. Finally, that led us to Lionsgate, and then we finally could make our dream project, which was La La Land.
So then I guess you can really speak to, the idea of it, where the actual idea of it came from. I mean, I know the intention was to make a musical, but the idea of making a love story set against the backdrop of Los Angeles, where did that specific idea come from?
That's Damien's idea. As soon as we started talking about doing another musical, he started formulating the story behind it. As soon as he started really putting the story on paper with the first treatment, I started doing music, but all of the ideas that led up to that point were his. And he started talking with 2 of the producers who were on from the beginning, Fred Berger and Jordan Hurwitz. They were on pretty much immediately as soon as Damien started kind of formulating it. So yeah, it was Damien probably working with Fred and Jordan at the time, or at least bouncing stuff off of them early on and story-wise. And then as soon as there was any story being formed, he looped me in and I started writing music.
So then where do the ideas for those songs come from?
Those come from the real ideas behind the songs come from the script, and from Damien would put in the treatment and then the script. He would kind of slug in song goes here, this is what the song is supposed to sort of do narratively or emotionally, this is what it is. And that's kind of what I was going off of as I was composing early on. Before I got there, I was looking at more just trying to compose themes, like thematic material, and then we sort of decided a little bit later, okay, this melody would be great for this moment, and this melody would be great for that moment. But his script had all of the indications of where musical numbers would be. So I remember his very, very first treatment, and then script had it started with a huge musical number on the freeway on a traffic jam. It had the planetarium sequence in it. It had what is now City of Stars. It wasn't called that because Pasek and Paul hadn't wrote those words yet, but it was, you know, this ballad at that moment in the script, and it had the audition scene that he described how it would start spoken and it would turn into a song, and it would grow and simmer down at the end. That was all in the script.
Mm-hmm. At what point did Pasek and Paul come in, and what was that collaboration between the three of you, or the four of you, I should say, including Damien? What was that collaboration like?
They came in the summer of 2014, so we had picked the project back up in the spring of 2014, and I went back to the drawing board on a lot of the melodies and started working with Damien, finding the melodies in the first place, and then once we had ones we loved, shaping them into songs. So conversations between me and Damien, okay, like what can be the verse, what can be the chorus, should it have a bridge or no bridge, structuring the melodies into songs in piano demo form. And then once we felt like we had piano demos of songs, at this point we were meeting with lyricists, having either meeting them, having conference calls with them. In the case of Pasek and Paul, we talked to them on the phone because they were New York based. And then they came to LA to meet with us. And on their trip, they worked on, just on spec, they worked on a sample lyric for this piano demo I had written. And they came to my apartment. We had dinner with them, and then they came to my apartment the next day and sang the lyric for what is now called City of Stars, and it is almost exactly what's in the movie. They sang "City of Stars, are you shining just for me?" And that became the lyric, and then they got the job as lyricists on the film. So I just started handing off more piano demos to them, either ones that were finished already or as I finished them. Music was always done first, because Damien and I had been working on these, you know, back and forth in these melodies forever, finding them, structuring them. Then I would hand them off, they would write the words, and then the lyric would often go through many drafts, just like I went through so many versions of melodies earlier.
Having seen Whiplash, I have this image in my head of you being like Miles Teller and Damien being like J.K. Simmons. I don't know how much screaming was involved in any of this.
Not a lot of screaming, exactly.
Good to know.
He's very, very demanding of the people he works with. But I appreciate it most of the time. I feel like I do my best work in that environment. I do my best work with him because he knows what I do. He appreciates what I do, and he's very specific and very demanding sometimes. And you have to keep going until it's what he feels is great. But as soon as something is, you know, as soon as it's great, like I'm happy that I got pushed to that point and kept throwing melodies out and kept revising the orchestration or whatever point I'm in, because then I can, you know, I trust him very much, and he trusts me, and we're both very honest with each other. Neither of us sort of dances around the issue or pulls any punches. We speak very honestly with each other, and it's why we have a successful collaboration, I think.
You brought up something earlier, and I just wanted to kind of go back to it and delve a little more. What songs do narratively? In a musical, it's very crucial that these songs further the plot and say something about the characters. I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah. Well, different songs function in different ways. So like City of Stars is, it's more of like a window into, when it first happens with Sebastian, it's kind of a window into his emotional state, at a critical time in his story where he's asked Mia out on a first date and she said yes. So he should be very happy about that, but he's very cautious because he's had so many heartbreaks and so many dreams that haven't worked out. So the music, I was thinking about something that could have that hopefulness and that optimism in it, but also that melancholy and that heartbreak. And because that's what that moment is. It's sort of this this very sort of critical moment for him, where he's on to something new. There's all this possibility, but there's all this caution because of past heartbreaks. And Audition the Fools Who Dream is kind of a story, really. Well, it's actually a really it's a cool idea for a song that Damien came up with, and it's a really clever lyric because it starts as a story that's about Mia's aunt, this aunt that inspired her to go into acting, and who Mia admires for for being so dedicated to her craft and her art and never giving up on that dream. But then as the song goes on, the lyric moves from being specific to being broader and more anthemic. So it goes from about being the aunt who, lived in her liquor and died with a flicker, to being about us, the dreamers, here to the fools who dream. And it becomes broader, and then it narrows in at the end, and it kind of simmers down and becomes more intimate again, and it returns to being about the aunt. So it's kind of a story, and then it becomes an anthem, and then a story again. And then Another Day of Sun, that was a really difficult one to compose the music for. It was and also for Pascal and Paul to write the lyric to, because it's a very complicated song. It's setting the world. It's setting the world of the movie and the musical. It's announcing off the bat this is a musical, and it's going to have a lot of singing and dancing and fun. It's going to be a spectacle at times, and narratively it's very complicated because the idea, it was always a really weird idea, which I think it works so well as an opening scene, but it's a weird idea in the sense that you're meeting all of these people who you're never going to see again in the movie. They're not the real characters in the movie. You don't meet Mia and Sebastian until after the number. So all these people getting out of their cars, singing about why they came to LA, what they're here to do, what their dreams are, writers, actors, whatever, singers, musicians, and each person gets just a little verse or less than a verse. So you have to very quickly catch up with what's their story and what their deal is. And you have to get all that very quickly. And then the camera whips to somebody else, and then you're onto their story. So it's all these little mini stories. And it was a really difficult lyric for Pascal and Paul to write, and really impressive that they were able to do that and did so many drafts of it. They went through so many versions of it that all fit to the same melody, which is just incredible that they're able to rework words like that and have it all sing so well, and just completely change the story every single time.
Absolutely. Now, were you on set for the filming of it to work with the actors?
Yeah, I was on set for any day there was music, which was most days. And yeah, there to either work with the actors, work with the jazz bands, all of the jazz ensembles that you see on screen. They're all playing, at the Lighthouse Club or whatever. They're all playing original jazz, and it's jazz that we recorded before we shot it. And then I transcribed all of the jazz, all of the solos, because they recorded it. I mean, I composed it, but you record jazz off of lead sheets. So then there are lots of solos and lots of stuff happens. People improvise, obviously, the drum parts, bass parts, all that ends up being kind of, there's a lot of exciting stuff that happens in jazz sessions. So then I transcribed all of it so that I could give all the notes of all the solos to all the players on set so that they could actually know what the notes were, so that all the fingering would be right and all that. Because Damien and I, it always bothers us in movies when you see people just kind of faking it. So we wanted everything to be right. We wanted everything to be authentic. So I was on set to sort of supervise some of that and some of the, with piano with Ryan. And then also the live singing was a huge deal. So Emma sang Audition the Fools Who Dream completely live on set. And the City of Stars duet was completely live, the vocals, and the little part of Someone in the Crowd when Mia retreats into the bathroom and sings that introspective chorus section of it. That was all live singing. So anytime there was live singing, I was in the other room playing piano into Emma and Ryan's ear, just accompanying them and letting them, take the space they needed and guide the song and lead the song as a performer. And I was just accompanying them. So that was a really fun and exciting part of it too, was kind of creating these authentic performances in front of the camera.
After the film was done shooting and you were editing, did your ideas for the score change at all from what you had originally been thinking about? Or, I mean, did the the underscore here, did that develop at all further during the editing?
Yeah, I mean, most of it happened during the editing, because like any movie, when you're doing the score, you're looking at the scenes, you're watching the picture, and you're responding to what's on screen, the cinematography, the colors, the production design, the performances, obviously from the actors, the cutting rhythms. If there's, some of these were long take scenes, but whatever is going on screen, you're responding to it. So most of the score cues were just, that was me. I had an office next to the editing room for 8 months, which is where I worked, because we didn't feel like we could use temp music. So I was full time next to the editing room where Damien and Tom were working full time. So I was just there, and every day they'd give me new scenes and I would score them. And Damien and I would talk about, okay, which melodic material, which thematic material could go where, what could make sense. Sometimes it was mostly starting with conversations between me and Damien. I'd get a scene, we'd say, oh, maybe we could use that melody there, and I would try it. And then I would try different orchestrational approaches. And yeah, just all day, every day for about 8 months, they were giving me scenes, I was giving them score cues, and then they would sometimes tailor the scene to fit the score cue a little better. And then I was obviously tailoring score cues to fit scenes, as a score composer does. But because it was a longer process than normal, there was a lot of back and forth between picture and score, and they were kind of evolving together, which was a really cool process to have them, picture and score, kind of informing each other. There were some score cues that were done earlier, like the planetarium sequence. That was something that I had composed and orchestrated before the movie was shot. I had to go back and tailor some of it to picture, because as they changed picture, I would have to go, rejigger it a little. Same with like the fantasy sequence at the end. There was like a demo for that, and then I went back and reconfigured it. But for the most part, on a scene to scene basis, all the dramatic underscore cues, we just waited till post, until I could actually watch the scenes.
All these years later, finally being able to see this film, I mean, what is that? How do you feel when you finally see this thing that you've been thinking about for almost a decade finally up on the screen?
It's incredible. It's we really didn't know if it was ever going to get made. It felt like such a pipe dream several years ago. So getting to make it, getting to make it the way that we always envisioned it would be, it has been we were kind of pinching ourselves on set. Like, I can't believe we're shooting a gravity-free ballet sequence, that like a studio's letting us do this. Like, this is incredible. And then to have it out there in the world to begin with, and then to have people respond to it like they has been really kind of surreal. We didn't really know when we were making it if people were gonna like it. It's a weird movie, compared to the type of movies that you make for the most part in this, with studios. So to get like resources to make such a crazy movie, and then to have, it's been really kind of surreal.
Well, Justin, congratulations, and thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Have a good one.